signed a Deed of Emancipation, or a deed of gift, which set in motion the freeing of more than 400 of his slaves from Nominee Hall in Westmoreland and several plantations around Virginia. It took several years. When he died in 1804, it was still going on. And his son, George, took some steps to try to counter that. He didn't like these activities that were going on. So we want you to go back in time tonight to that period, thinking about the situation that would exist when you have some families free, some still enslaved, and sons and fathers and family members who disagree about what should be happening in their communities. So we're rolling back the clock tonight to about 1805. Enjoy.
To you. I'm not usually the one that speaks. Usually my husband is the one that does the speaking, George. He's much better at it than I am. I should ask if you can hear my voice okay, or should I use the thing that makes my voice louder? I am not comfortable in front of people like this. I'm just a simple woman, and I don't speak very loudly except to my children, of course, and sometimes my husband when he deserves it. If you don't mind, since we're near a church, I'd like to just sing a song. It certainly would do my heart good to calm what's inside of me. Is that all right with you? Yes, ma'am. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave, and I'll be home with my Lord, and I'll be free. Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in the grave. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in the grave, and I'll be home with my Lord. Oh, I'll be home and I'll be free. Thank you. Oh, I feel much better now. I sing about freedom because I am free now. And I have been free for a few years now. It being 1806, and my husband George and I, Sarah would be my name, Sarah Cooper, and we were one of the folks that was in the first years of freeing. And so by the third freeing that happens at January of every year, you understand, a certain number, 15 folk are freed. And those that have turned 21 that are young gentlemen, or 18 if they're young ladies, are freed at that time, at the beginning of the years, each year. George and I were in the third year to be freed. We had watched each and every one of the folk before us, and we celebrated right there with them. On that very first time in 1792, whoo, Lord have mercy. Oh, there was such a celebration. Even himself, even Master Carter himself come and celebrate with us. well, we didn't have much to do with Master Carter, you see. We just see him by and by. He having all the plantations, all the land he has, and ordinaries and such. And I'm over at Old Ordinary. That's where George is. And if you look and see it written down, he's a Carter, but not a Carter. He's a Carter. Like horse cart, you understand? He's a Carter, yes, but not a Carter. Are y'all with me? So he's a horse cart, and my husband is, and such, and oh my, it was a delight that day. He went in, and every year, 5 shillings has to be paid for every person freed. 5 shillings. My George said, there won't no point in Master Carter being the only one to pay, and he roused up enough to pay for his own freedom and give it to Master Carter. Oh, that was a fine time we had. The celebrations, the songs, the singing, the feasting. Now, it may have been cold on the outside in January, but there was nothing but warmth inside of our hearts. And we all started imagining what it was going to be like. And it was a fine thing. We could hold our heads up proud as we get freedom and walk along our way. We get our freedom, and my husband being Carter, like he is, the horse Carter. Well, the horse that we had done used for so long, it done gone bad. And Master Carter gave us a horse. And we told him we'd pay him back right as we could, and as we went on a little bit, and because after we got freed, then we had to pay our own rents. And so I don't mind. Understand? I don't mind paying my own rent, not with my own money in my hand for my own work. You understand? That's a fine thing to have. And so we paid for our own rent, and it will take us a bit of time, but we was determined that we'd pay it back. And every time we come to Master Carter to come pay it, he say, oh, well, just take a little longer. Take a little longer. God bless him. He wouldn't take nothing for it. And before you know, he had moved on over to Baltimore and such. But the truth be, I know y'all folk from around here, but I believe some of y'all might be the ones that run him out. I come here because I heard that it's best to talk to folks front to front about things. And some folks ain't been right kindly to him, Master Carter and all. But he didn't take nothing for that horse. We didn't see a whole lot of him, but when he was going to the Wacomico church, he come around with us, and we was right surprised to see him there good much. And then he get this faith inside him. You know, the good books say it right. In God's eyes, we're all the same. That's what the good books say. Eyes in the image, and so's you, and you too, sir. And so we're all the same, I think, in God's eyes. Now, I know the good book talk about having slaves. I ain't got nothing against that. But it also says how you're supposed to act towards them. I done read that part. Some folk done forgot that there's a part like that. And so I understand that we should be looking like we together, like we can work side by side. Now, Mr. Carter, Master Carter, he free us out a little bit at a time, and we watch what happened to him. It wasn't nothing we could do for him. But folks started not taking his business or even buying things from him. Would turn their heads away from him. Women walk away from where he stood. He even asked folk for help, and when we come to his aid during that winter of 93, but we'd be about it. Then there was a call out there for a while that maybe he deserved to be tarred and feathered like them folk when the war was happening. And he leave with his daughters, go up to Baltimore. That's where his wife was from Maryland. She was Annapolis. And he stay up there. But every year, he makes sure that we gets freed. He called on old Reverend Dawson. Now, I don't know how much reverending he does. He be one of them wandering preachers and such like that. I can only tell you this, he a sure man of freedom without any doubt at all. A sure man of freedom, maybe not very good with money of other folks, but he's been known to take a time a little bit from folks in an unnatural way with their money and such. But he's always been good to the slaves, and Master Carter trusted him with our lives. With our lives. When Master Carter leave, it be said, and I think it be true, because I done heard Reverend Dawson say it, that Master Carter closed all his books up in his library and his important papers in there. Locked the door, because his son's going to go in there and take it all out. Lock the door and give one key away. Reverend Dawson. They made trouble for Reverend Dawson as he would go in and go to the Westmoreland County courthouse and file the names in. It was such a special day when he would do that. And he'd have that money from Master Carter, and folks would just cross their eyes about him. Reverend Dawson. And then he go in there one time, and he caused so much trouble that one of Master Carter's son-in-laws beat near the Dawson, just beat him hard, and just say all kinds of things in court. And well, finally, because Master Carter couldn't keep coming down, and because they decided that they weren't going to listen to Master Carter, Reverend Dawson standing in for Master Carter, Master Carter sold all of his slaves to Reverend Dawson for $1. And Reverend Dawson promised that he would still free us, like it be said. And he done kept that promise. Now, whatever done else you heard about him, and I ain't seeing that's wrong, he ain't good with money, and the drink has always been a susceptible thing for him. But he has always been good about freedom. And he'd always go up there the first of the year and follow what Master Carter put in place. But I come to you, good folk, because Master Carter done died. God rest his soul. His son, George, bring his body back over here, over to Nominee Hall and bury him in the garden. And on that same day, he go out and buy slaves to replace the ones that his daddy freed. And then the next year, we go have our children freed. My Betty and my Sam was to be freed. Folks that had whole families free, and we was little bit by little bit seeing our own children free. They had both come up to the right age. And Reverend Dawson go like he's supposed to. But there'll be another reverend. I don't think he's a reverend at all. Don't rightly remember his name, but he also a judge. He didn't like Master Carter. Well, you know why. Well, it was said. I ain't sharing nothing wrong now, just passing on the truth. It was said that there was a house that reverend wanted, and Master Carter didn't give it to him. Gave it to one of the slaves that was freed. That reverend won't have it. And he was a judge. That young Carter, he go up to that judge and he say that governor, that Reverend Dawson is doing what's wrong and not abiding by the contract that be there, and that he shouldn't have nobody else freed. And all others are supposed to stay slaves. and that their judge say, that be right. Good people, we have paid our taxes and the levies put upon us. I carry with me my free papers. I will not show them to you, for I have known folk to take those papers from their hand and tear them apart in front of me, and had to secure more. We have done all we are to do. We have accepted that many will not deal with us on a proper and good place, will charge us more money sometimes, will not accept the products that we have without giving us a lower price. We've accepted that. We have accepted that no matter how hard we work, and in some eyes we will never be equal. We have accepted and heard folks say to us, the colored, the Negro, it cannot take care of itself by itself. And we have tried to show that we can. Indeed, we have taken care of most of you. We have done what is right. I beseech you, will you not go for the courts before us? Will you not go to the courts for us and stand beside us as we plead for our children to be freed, as was set aside by Master Carter? It was his wish. Some of you were his friends, his comrades. I know some of you are angry that he is no longer of the proper church, that he's Swedenborgian. I don't understand what all that means. I do know he's a man of God and a man of faith. Does that not count for something? Will you not walk beside us in this? George says that we need to go and talk to you all, to our community. I was born here. I was a part of Old Ordinary. I have walked the streets you have walked. I have visited the markets you have visited, and walked in the stores you have walked. You have seen my face. I am a free woman now, and I will be no less kind and no less good to you. I know some of you have heard what we've had to do, and we should have done it, and I'm certain some of you say that we should have. Do not look on us harshly for not doing such. Some have hired and rented their own children, have purchased their own children to be their own slaves, just in order to keep them there with them, close by. Have you heard about Mary Harrison? She was able to get her freedom in the second year. The first year. And Mary wrote the master and said that she desired to rent out her children from him, to work for her, and pay him the rent of them. He agreed. And then she wrote him while in Baltimore and beseeched him to consider freeing them early. For if she could have them freed, they could move to be closer to her husband, their father, who was still a slave, but not in this area. She begged that she would still, if he would free them, or at least allow them to travel, she would continue to pay the rent for them, continue to pay for their service, her own children. We didn't rent our children. We knew they would be free. We asked them to bide their time. And they did. And if they are not freed, what about my two youngest? Will they ever be freed? Do you do not know how my heart cries. I rejoice in my freedom. I long to hold my daughter in my arms and call her free. And to walk with my son and see him as a free man. And for him not to worry that if he should jump the broom with a woman and his children, if he could marry a free woman, his children would be free. My daughter's children could be free. I gave birth to slaves. For that is what the law said I had to do. The law says it. You know the law. If your mother is a slave, you are a slave. If your mother is free, you are free. If your mother is indentured, you are indentured. I had no choice. The children I have came out with chains upon their legs. I just want my daughter. I want my daughter to give birth to a child that has nothing around it. You do that, don't you, ma'am? You did that, didn't you, ma'am? Why can't I? I don't have very much more I could say to you here, except to beseech you. There are those of us who have tried very hard to maintain our dignity as our papers are taken from us. You may not know what my life as free may be. You may think it's the same as your own. Well, I ask you to look at it. Shall we look together? What does the good book say? Come, let us reason together. So let us look at what my life is as free and see what it is to you as well. Can we do such? Well, let me see. Sir, if you don't mind, will you show me your free papers? Do you have them on you? No. Do you have some? No. Have you ever had any? No. And how can I prove that you are free? But me, I must pull out free papers wherever I go. And you, good lady, show me your free papers. Hand them to me now. Hand them to me. Hand them to me. And if you handed them, and I took them, and I read them, and then said, this is not true. I do not believe this. Come with me. I will take you to the jail until someone can prove that you are free. I ask you, sir, do you travel to other cities or other towns? Yes. And no worries do you have, do you? You have worries? Then you are like me, sir. Indeed. I won't ask for your papers today. But you, sir, do you travel from town to town? When you go to a town and there's someone that does not recognize your face and you are doing work there or delivering something there, do they stop you and look at you and say, you, I do not know you. Where are you from? And you tell them where you are. You even tell them how you become free. You tell them that you worked for the mighty and the good Robert Carter. Their faces frown. They say, I do not know your face. Let me put you in the jail until someone shows me. But then how? How do you tell someone where you are? How do they find you? Or must you wait until someone comes looking? That is my freedom. That is my freedom. Some who were married to women who were not of Master Carter's, they have taken those women that were still good enough to have children and moved them to other places. So their husbands who are free cannot put them with notions of freedom inside of their mind. I am free, but I am not like you. I am free, but I am still so much a slave without a master. We have been threatened. They have said that we have brought a bad element to the community, that we have caused for there to be destruction of property. I tell you, I have not known one of us who are free who have done such. But I know some who have always been free, who have done such in our name. And the blame has been on us. And that is what has encouraged this man, this judge, to say that we are not worth the freedom given to us. I certainly have taken up a good bit of your time. Might I have the time, please? I don't want to keep you too long.
7:30.
Oh, thank you, sir. You're very kind. A timepiece, a nice wife that you have with you, and such. Both of you are free? Yes. Yeah, well, that is good. We want to remain that way, sir. Yes. Well, I have a few moments. I suspect I could answer a few questions. I'm certain I've spoke out of turn far too much. I hope that you will apologize, accept my deepest and sincerest apologies for anything untoward that I have said or any offense I have caused. I am a mother. I beg that you will give me leave, that as a mother begging for her child, I do not come to you from evilness, but from a heart that desires for her children the grandness of freedom. Might you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
If your daughter were to be freed
Yes,
and
ma'am.
have children,
Yes.
would her children have papers? Where would they get papers?
They would have to get papers, yes. Well, when a child is born, of course, we ensure that they are noted at the Westmoreland County in the courthouse. So to ensure that. The child would not have to have papers immediately. It would be with its mother, you do know. Mm-hmm. Yes. But then, yes, we would have to find papers for the child. And when the child is old enough to go about on its way, it shall have to have papers. And we shall go to Westmoreland County to get such.
I see. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're free, your whole family is free, will you leave the Robert Carter plantation, or would you go off to try to set up, can you buy land to start your own place?
You give us great dreams. May I have some water before I... yes, but I do not want to offend. But I... The wells here have the finest, freshest water. You asked if we are all, when we are all free, and I do hope that is true, madam, that when we move away from here, George is a Carter. Not a Carter, but a Carter. You do understand this. People are often confused when I say that about him, but he does quite well. He helps to move many people back and forth. He helps with moving the things for building things. And he also picks up things that are at the old ordinary when the ships and the schooners and the sloops come in. And he will take those things and deliver them wherever they need to be. He is very good at that. And we have done well. And he has continued to profit from that. And I assist him all I can and work in whatever field or do whatever chores I can. And I do not think that we would move. But if we could buy land, if we could go west, then maybe the eyes of people would not look at us as less than, for we would have to clear our own land, and we can do such. And we would have to build our own, and we could do such. And it would be most difficult. That would be a fine thing to do. But I don't think that we will have the monies to secure such a thing. But it doesn't mean that we don't think about it. I would clear as many trees as possible. I would sleep us under the night sky until we could come into a home. I would be kind to the Indians that are there. I do not want my head scalped or such like that. I've heard that they do such things. I've never seen such, but they do say that. So I would be kind to them. I would bring with me all the herbs that I have to help with colds, and I would help anyone out there. Or maybe we could go to one of the forts that is out west. There are some there. And maybe we could offer our services there. Maybe I could plant a garden for our food. Maybe one with flowers like Master has at Nominee. Yes, sir.
How about your last name? How do you go with selecting your last name?
There's much discussion about how we select our last names. Everyone prepares early for this. There's great debate. Oh, husbands and wives often don't agree. Yes, for the names that they desire to have. For your last name is most important. You do know that. And to be ensured that you will be properly recorded as who you are. He said the name, and I am a kind wife to him on most days. And I said that would be fine for us. Cooper was fine. His father was a cooper, you understand? The maker of the barrels, you understand it. And so that was a fine name for us. I thought, I asked him, would you not like the last name of Carter since you are a Carter? He said, no, it is confusing enough as it is. I understood. I will be honest with you, sir. I did not care what last name I was given, as long as I was free when I had such. But there are great raging debates. My daughters even said, I'm not certain I want to be a Cooper. Her father was very angry, and I said, she will be a free woman. Let herself decide. Her father, not so much. She will be still in my house. She can be a Cooper. But there are discussions. Oh, most of you have never had a discussion about your last name, have you? You didn't get to choose. That is one sadness or one happiness that you can't share with me. The joy of being a new name. Sorry. Yes.
Yes, Sarah, 2 questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Were the free Negroes living side by side with the enslaved that had not been free?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
And Sarah, what is your profession, your job, your position?
I work hard at whatever is before me. I have learned some of the ways of weaving. He had Irishmen come in at some time, Irish folk, to help us with the learning of that, and I have some of that. I dye things very well. I am good with the herbs, and I can make the finest of dyes. And whenever that we have the flax, and that folks want to take the material and turn it to colors, I can do that very well. And I have good hands for that. And a good mind for how all of the plants can be used, the certain plants that we use, and the bugs that we use, to be able to make the dyes that we have. The thing you have upon your head now, such a fine dye was put upon that. I am certain I would be most curious as to how it attains that the perfection of that, but I could come to a near semblance of that. That is what I do. And if I need to, work in the field whenever is needed. And of course, work about my own house now, as it is. We still stay at Old Ordinary, and we are side by side, those who are freed and enslaved. And that is the joy of our community. For those who are not freed yet can see what will be. And they have a joy. And we can teach them, and they can see through the challenges that we have what they shall have. And it gives them strength to be prepared. And it's a fine thing to be beside. And oh, the rejoicing there is when one becomes free. The rejoicing there is. There is nothing. If only you could come. If only you could help us. I would invite you to come. Come after they are freed. Come to the celebration. Sit with us. Sing with us. Rejoice with us. And never again would you want someone to be a slave. You would want to celebrate every freedom you could take a part in. I'm sorry. I speak with much excitement. Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us what your house is like?
It's small. Well, it's not any larger than any. I'm certain that you live in something that is certainly more along the lines of the master himself. It is certainly not larger than any of that. It is not as large as his schoolhouse. It is not as large as his wash house. It is not as large as his stable. It is not large. Master has large everything. We are not that. It's a simple house. And we use the logs, and then of course the mud that we put in between between each of the logs, and mud and daub and such like that. Well, you understand what that is. It's just the manure. But it's the dried manure. Yes, the dried manure is what we use. We mix that with the mud, and well, there's no smell to it. Oh, do not fret. Oh, sir, that face. There is no smell to it all, not one bit. And then we use that upon each of the houses and such like that. And ours is a simple one. We have the room that we have downstairs, and we eat and we cook in there, and we sleep upon the floors there. And there's a small loft above that the children go to, and we have not the fortune of a window, nor do we need such a thing, and there's nothing put in a place that you have a window, then you don't want one, as such, but that is where we are, and it is a satisfying place to be.
On the floor?
Well, it's a floor, yes, mostly dirt. Sometimes we've been able to put a little wood in some parts of it, but it is mostly dirt, and that is where we stay. Of course, we have pallets. I'm not certain what kind of home you have. I'm certain you're sitting here. You have a much finer home than me. We have simple pallets, just cloth with husk in between such, corn husk and such. Sometimes hay, but hay sometimes when it gets wet is an abominable thing to sleep upon, and certainly causes great discomfort. And the smell in the night is not pleasant. But the corn husk seem to are much better. Yes. You are most welcome to visit now. You would. I would be pleased to have you. I will ensure that we have more than what we usually eat. I will make sure that we have an extra chair. Will your husband come with you? Sit on the floor. It's a kindness. They are not invited to homes, except for each other. I have never been in the home of a white person, nor invited. Yes, ma'am, and then the young sir did. Yes, ma'am.
How hard is it to get your papers back once somebody's taken them and torn them up?
It is not hard if I'm in Westmoreland County. I simply go to the courthouse and let them know, and they are very kind. There the clerk understands the ways of folk. But if you are not here, it can be most challenging. Sir,
Yes.
the one in the back first, sir. And you
I
find,
was
sir.
wondering, if the master,
Master Carter.
Master Carter,
Yes.
what did he dole out for your meals every day?
Oh, dole out.
What did he give you?
Oh, yes. He'd long since given us anything direct like. Most of the places that he has, all of the places that he has, we take care of our own selves in what is given and such. So he assures that he maintains that the overseer at each of the places ensures that food is given to all the slaves, as is proper by what is grown there and then what comes in. So we have done well. At Old Ordinary, of course, that is where many of the ships come in, or not ships, but the sloops and the schooners come in. So we do well with the food that we have. And of course, we feast upon anything that can be caught inside the river. I do not know if any of you are fishermen, but I'm a fine fisherwoman myself, if I must say. And I enjoy the times when shad runs. Have you had shad lately, sir? Oh, my. Well, it is a fine thing to ensure that you have when it runs. And they run large, so you can eat on them 2 or 3 days at a time. And then, if you need to, you can also steam or smoke such, and then save such as the winter goes along. And it is fine if you put potatoes inside of it, or carrots, particularly those that you have held over the winter months. It is very fine for that. I hope I answered your questions.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
On such a large plantation as,
There are several places, sir. It is.
I'm trying to get to my question.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. You began to sound like my husband. I thought I needed to explain to
I apologize. On such a large plantation with hundreds of slaves, could you tell us the difference between living conditions, those who are close to the big house and those who are further out?
I cannot, sir. I live in Old Ordinary. It is where I've been all of my life. I have not been in Aries or Sagittarius or Cancer. I have not been into Nominee Hall but for a few moments. Never been in the Master's house. I have seen the Master. He has come by Old Ordinary. He has come to Okomoko Church. I don't see any difference in us. I tell you only this. Those closest to his house have children that are not freed right now as well. They still struggle. He took 2 of them with him, 2 of the slaves with him up to Baltimore. They were older. It was a kindness that he took them, so he could care for them. And they could care for him as they had done all their lives. But I cannot tell you differences, sir. We are so separate. Now, my husband, if he was here, he would certainly tell you of differences. For he has gone to each one and delivered into, but I don't travel with him. What need would I have for that? And you even asking the question, sir, I realize that you assume that a woman would have as many travels as a man would. And maybe that is what you free women do. Maybe I should travel more. Is that what you free women do?
Indeed.
With,
Whenever we can.
with your husband or without? I have some things to learn about being a free wife. I will see if we can do that. I do not think that will go well. But I do not mean to. Do you understand why I do not know.
Thank you.
Wait your turn. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to ask you, you had stated that you and your husband were free and your children were still enslaved.
Yes, ma'am.
Did they still live with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you were still over them as their mother and everything?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Oh, our children are our children, yes. And although we are freed, we wait for their freedom day. And so, of course, my younger ones are still with me as well, 8 and 6. And so they have much time before their time of freedom and such. But my older two, we expected their freedom quickly. Not that my daughter would leave. She is 18 years of age. Well, this is 19 now. I did not expect her to leave home, but to be free, to choose if she desired a husband. And my son, he already has his eyes set. And yet he can do nothing. Or he refuses to do such as a slave. I tell you one thing, and this is true, and some of you may use this as a reason why there should be no more freedom amongst the slaves. It is true that once you see someone become free, that is all you think about. I know I have seen and met others only at markets who are not free yet, and they look at us. They look at us with the same look that I looked at Mary Harrison with when she had her freedom. Longing, longing, longing. And nothing else was in my mind. That is the way we live. And so it is true. Those of you who own slaves, you slaves probably are discomforted by our presence. But maybe you should be discomforted by their slavery. Isn't it?
Now that you're free and you're still living in Old Ordinary,
Yes.
are you paying rent?
Well, of course. The house is not ours. It is Master's house. Oh, God rest his soul. But we will continue to pay until we can find our own or make our own, or until it is given to us. He has given to some their own houses and such. We were given a horse. The cost of a horse. But George would not be able to work. We gladly pay the rent, for he has given us so much. Yes, what do you want?
Master Carter does seem to be quite fair and just. Are there others of his enslaved population that disagree with that picture of him?
I suspect those who are not freed quick enough would disagree with that picture of him. I believe that some desire the freedom of their loved ones more quickly and do not understand why he would do such in a small piece at a time. But I have heard it said that the reason that he only did it a little bit at a time was so that it would not discomfort, it would not anger those who were white and that were around him. He thought that a little at a time they could get used to 15 or so at a moment's time, instead of all 511 at one moment. He was wrong. Even 15 freed people have caused such strong sensations to come against him. 15. Cannot imagine what this community would have done with 511.
Was that in total, or was that just them here in this one plantation?
Oh, yes. Now, there were others. Do you have any more?
I'm saving them up all night.
Were
I'm
there
just,
other freed,
you did not raise your hand. And he did raise his hand. You will have to be patient, sir. Yes, even God expects you to go in order. Yes, yes, sir.
I wondered, when you and your children got sick, did the overseer or the master help you to get well, or was it up to you to find your herbs to make yourself well?
If we should need a physic, then a physic would be supplied to us. There's never been any worries about that. Master has always seen to it that we have had the proper physics and such. But we also have women and some men that know how the properties and are much better than some of the physics be. Indeed, bloodletting is a fine thing to do, but it does not repair an arm. Yes, and sometimes the simple things that you can have, the simple root or a bit of licorice, or of course we know horsehound does many great things if you have such a cold. But those things are given to you so that you may overcome them. Indeed, yes.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir. You must wait.
At what age would your children be sent to the fields or into the big house or?
We tease our children and tell them that they need to learn how to walk quickly. And we tell them that. We say that, if anything that doesn't move quick enough, we're going to eat. But it's possible or such. It says, so if you don't move quick enough, but we just tease our children with that. But as a child is prepared to be able to deliver water, it can begin to work in the field or near to the fields. Such. That is not the only work available. There's things that can be done in the kitchen, or things that can, or water that can be brought from the wells, or kindling that can be found, and even young can do such as that when they are old enough to be able to do the work given to them. I know that gives no age to you, ma'am. For each child is different. Is that not true? Fascinating. Sir.
My question is, were there other freed people besides what Mr. Carter freed in Westmoreland County?
Yes, there were a few that were already freed, but not many. And I've heard that in all of Virginia there are not many at all. I've heard in Virginia that for every one that is freed, there are 10 others that are slaves. And I would say that is more true than not. In Williamsburg, they say that they have more freed folk there and such. And I have heard tell, although I cannot be proven true at all, but my husband has said that those in Eastern Shore of Virginia, well, they indeed have had many who have been freed and never been slaves. And I've been most curious about that. And I asked him how he knew, and he said it's the conversation that happens along those that go from the waterways. They speak of everything. That is how folks know things. It is often said, how do people get the messages one way or the other? Well, of course you get the messages. We're the ones that talk to the ones that are on the boats, and that are the ones that pass along the food or ride to here to there. And of course we pass that on as well. And the truth being that as slaves, many times a master or some folk around you would forget you were even there. And they say anything when they are forgotten. Yes, ma'am.
For the longest time, slaves were not allowed to learn how to read, but yet you read. When did you learn, and how did they teach you?
I read.
I thought you said something about you read something.
I don't remember saying that. If I said that, it probably just meant that someone said it to me from something they read. But that would be like me reading it. Yes. But I can read a very few things that my husband has taught me. He has gone about, you see. And so he has learned various things for it is important for his job to make sure that he gets the right things. But I do not know much. I would like to learn more. There's still the schoolhouse there, and I'm certain George will never let us have foot inside of it. But he would do well to teach us, for then we could assist and help him, and continue to help his business to grow. He would not need slaves to help him do that. If he would pay a fair wage, he would still have money back. And the question is, and this is my question, I bring this up to you because I do not understand. Master Carter's son has more money than most men will ever have. is not about money that he leaves slaves, and if it is not about money that he leaves slaves, then why does he? Why? I cannot answer that question for him. But I will finish. I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to go. You're very kind. Well, all right, just one more. Since this one took up so much of your time. No, you don't.
Were the 400 ever freed? Because George Carter did not wish them to be freed and put up all these obstacles. Were they ever freed?
That is where we are right now, madam. That is where we are waiting.
Oh, you're waiting.
And there's great hopes, but I do not know. So I end again beseeching you, begging of you, go to this man who is one of your community. Tell him of all that we have done to make our freedom like yours, to help this community to grow and continue to be good and great. Tell him. And tell him to abide by the law, that our children should be freed. Thank you, people. It's all right. It's as sturdy as it needs to be for the moment. Okay. All right. That's good. That's a man worried about my health. Health and well-being. He's like, that woman is a little bit tired, so I'm just going to sit a little bit. Thank you for the opportunity. Before I sit, let me at least introduce myself. My name is Sheila Arnold Jones, and I'm a professional storyteller and performer. And today you got to meet Sarah, and I hope that you enjoyed meeting her. I hope that it does cause us questions to ask. Now, the reality of it is that there were 3 years that they waited. 3 long years they waited until a court overturned that ruling by the Reverend, whose name I cannot remember for anything in the life of me right now, and said that what Reverend Dawson did was correct and law-abiding. And everyone who had been stopped from being freed in 1808 was freed immediately, since they had been held illegally at that point. So that was an amazing thing that all of them were freed. But for 3 years, there was that time where you just did not know what was going to happen. And that's pretty intense. I think it is. And we don't know who may have even died during that time, or who just ran away because they were afraid. But what would have happened in people's lives and those decision making. But they certainly didn't make some decisions. Most families didn't move anywhere. People probably didn't get married when they expected, or if they did, they probably waited until they have children. So these were things that would have come across their minds and their hearts. And it's a wonderful story. And the story of Robert Carter, I'm so glad that Karen, right? This is right. Yes, I did everything wrong here. But Karen asked me to look into it. I have so much more research to do. I'm just it's finite. It's just this big, just this much. And every time I read something, the dissertation by John Barden, or if I read something else online, and I'm just like, I have so much more to learn. But I can imagine what their lives must have been. And I have read about some of the difficulties being free was like. That it wasn't just being free. That there's a great book actually called Slaves Without a Master, about the free Negroes and how they often had the rules put upon them that felt like almost they were slaves, but they had no master. So I can share those because those really happened, and there's documentation of that. So anyhow, I think I can.
Tell us how you found Sarah.
How did I find Sarah? Okay, I found Sarah after I drank some water. So the actual document, the deed. Excuse me. This is my 3rd program today. So, so completely different time period. The other 2 were and tomorrow I'll be somebody completely else different. So that's fun. My mama used to say I had multiple personality disorders, but it was okay because I got paid for it. The actual deed itself, underneath the deed, or as a part of the deed, are the listing of every single person who is enslaved, and their age, and where they live, and sometimes things like what they did, like George, Carter, okay? So, which I get to have a lot of fun with, you know, so there's a list of all of them, everybody that's there, everybody's alive at that time, their name and their ages are. And he goes in order on his, on the list, he says that he's gonna start from oldest to youngest. And so the oldest, the first 15 oldest, back and forth, men and women, would go. But when you turn 18 and 21, you were also put on that list. So that was an automatic that would go on. So sometimes a little bit more than 15. But that's where, so her name was on there. So then came the process of trying to figure out a woman on the list that I could figure out a husband for. So I could have a husband and a wife and then maybe some children and figure out what we were going to do with it, because I didn't know how we were going to tell the story yet. But I needed to find a woman that, so I found Sarah, and after much trying to figure out where they were, because it's a list, it's crazy. It's a wonderful logic puzzle. If you like logic puzzles, it's great. Because this document, which you can go online and see at a wonderful website called
NominiHallSlaveLegacy.com.
There you go. And that one, yes, very good. And that one, but you can go and pull it up, and each one of the what do they call it? They're not plantations. They're not individual plantations. They're individual lands or
Quarters.
Huh?
Quarters.
Quarters. Thank you. I could not. I was sitting there going the whole time like I can't figure out the word. It's not there. So. Each of the quarters has a different name. So what he does, and he doesn't have to write out the name every single time, is as part of the top part, he says, he gives a number to each of the names. So as you look at the person's name, it says Sarah, and then it says her age, and then it says whatever the number is for Old Ordinary. So you have to go through and figure out who lives in the same place together. And then kind of figure out, and then there's the children, and some of the children you can kind of begin to figure out where they belong, because some of them actually have a mama. You can, okay, but there's also repeated names. So Sarah happens to be a popular name. So you got to find the Sarah that can match the George, that can then match the Betty, that can match the Sam, which she had 3 other children, which I thought she had, but then those weren't her children because they were at the wrong place and the wrong time, so I got rid of them and then moved them over here. But it was just an amazing thing, but that's how she came to be, I got her in that place. And then as I was thinking about how I wanted to tell the story, I really wanted to find someone who had children who would have become free at one point in time, but they were in that moment of time where their freedom would not have happened. And she was perfect because she had 2 children that would have become free during that period of time that it was stopped, and then 2 younger ones that she probably was absolutely scared about as well. Because if these 2 don't get it, those 2 never would. And her children would never be hers, which would mean that George Carter could take those kids and sell them as far away from her as he wanted, and never think twice. For 3 years, they wondered if their children would be their own. The only good thing about it being in court for those 3 years was that he couldn't sell them. And I'm pretty certain that that part of the law is still the same, because I think that's still, even today, while something's like in the process of adjudication or in the process of appeal, that can't happen when appeals were made. So they couldn't be sold as far as I can recognize by the law. I may be wrong, but I think that's true. Yeah, because that also happens today, so you can't do certain things today. So if that is true, then they couldn't be sold, but for 3 years there was like, will these children even be mine? Because if they did not allow them to be freed, they were the families. They were the families, they were the Carters, and the Carters could do whatever they wanted. And they were not happy children at their daddy. They were very angry at their father. The son-in-laws and the sons, very angry at their father for doing this. I think for a couple of reasons. One, he was an embarrassment. He joined a strange religion, and then he made a big stink about it by going and freeing all his slaves. And he took away part of their money. Now they had plenty of other ways to get money, but it was certainly a status thing as well. And their father embarrassed them by doing that. And then embarrassed them more by sometimes not renewing people. There were white tenants on his land, and sometimes he wouldn't renew a white tenant's house. And he would give that house to one of his freed, newly freed folks. That didn't go over well. Yeah. So, that's just made it very much. So there's a great embarrassment as well as an anger at their father for giving away their portion of the will. Yes, over there. I know. Yeah, I saw your hand. I was trying to finish that. Yes.
Does that website tell you all of the plantations in the surrounding areas and the last names of the masters of those plantations?
Not that one. That one is focused completely on nominai, which I love that I just found out how to pronounce that correctly. Or pronounce it like the people that have been interviewed about it and how they pronounce it. Nominai. And so, no, not that one. But Maryball, Washington Library probably has information about some of the plantations and the areas that are around here. Am I correct?
We do.
That's what I thought.
I don't know how much Westmoreland we might have on that, but we could point you in the right direction for
Yes.
the Westmoreland County Courts and the Northern Neck Historical Society as well, and find out some.
They
of
are
that.
a great resource when it comes to research. And true, what Karen says, if she doesn't know if she doesn't have it, she'll help you get to the place that it does have it. And so if that's really interests you, please make sure you connect with them. And they offer their services really free, so they're really kind about that. And they often have books. They have a lot of books and documents. I am pitching them right this moment because I've enjoyed what they're giving to the community. And they're the ones giving to this community and connecting with historic church, Christ Church here, to be able to have this program together. So it's really nice.
Thank
Yes.
Do you know what happened to Sarah and George by any chance?
I don't. I'm still working on that. Maybe they went to the West.
Did you have that planned when she asked that question? You just came out, boom, the West.
Okay, so I'm a historic character interpreter, and I do 12 different women in history, not counting Sarah, because she isn't quite fully established yet. So I do 12 different women in history. And so last year, I went to Fairmont, West Virginia, to Prickett's Fort. And I did some teaching out there about slaves and about African Americans out there, some slaves, some not slaves. And so while I was out there, I learned all about the fort that was out west and how that was. And so I was like, oh, I'll just use all the stuff I just learned about the fort, because at that time the fort would have already been built. And so it was easy for me to actually go, oh, I'll just go someplace I know. And so that was the place I went to. And so that's why. But there's a real place. That's Prickett's Fort, and they could have been there, and it would have been, and they could have gotten land, and it still would have cost, but there would have been a fort to help protect, and they could have offered their services, and da. So, yeah, that was kind of cool. I hadn't thought about that until I got in the middle of it and went, oh, let's go.
And we do know there were some communities of the former slaves who moved west.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were some communities of former slaves. I'm excited about that. Yes.
The other thing is that Virginia passed a law, I think in 1806, that said all free blacks must leave Virginia. But most of the people who were emancipated actually stayed in their own counties,
Yes.
which is interesting. And clearly they could have had negative feedback from the local community, but most of them stayed where they were, right? Correct?
Well, most of them stayed in their own communities for a couple reasons. One, because they had become a part of that community. Secondly, if you left your community, no one knew you, which meant that you had to go through that whole process of, am I free
That's right.
or not free, every time you did that. So it was a law that was not enforced, but there was a reason that it wasn't enforced, because there really was no protection for them if they left the community at all. There just was no protection. Although they were supposed to leave the state, they never left their communities. Yes.
Well, I would say the Nominee Hall Slave Legacy Project, you might have that in the name, that is run by a group of descendants, and their goal is to track down all descendants from the freed people. And so if you're interested in knowing what happened to a certain line, there may be some people on there that can, would share their genealogy and their history. So I encourage you to take a look at that
I haven't
site.
gotten that far yet.
Yeah.
So I've gone to the website, I've read a ton of stuff, but I have a lot more to do. Yes, sir.
Two things.
Two things.
One, across the way here, there's a new exhibit on the manumission. It has a lot of information in it. Take advantage of it.
Where is it
In the
at?
museum.
Just right
The
here.
museum, right?
Oh, okay, right here.
Right across the walkway.
Very good.
In that, it talked about something that you were asking about. Of the 511 odd slaves, in the deed, it provided for the immediate release in the years of 93 and 94 of those who were over 45 years old, were released during those 2-year periods. And then your story picks up with all the ones who were not in that group. So that's how they got to all of the 511.
It was incremental.
That
Yes.
15
Yeah.
each January was where you
It was actually a little bit more than 15, because after I put it all together, I said, oh, so if you turn 18 as a woman and 21 as a boy, man, then you also were in that little process as well. Because when I went back and I was looking at the actual, how many people were freed, I'm like, that's a little bit more than 15. Where did these other people come from? They was like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's confusing.
And the last ones were not free until 1854.
Yes.
Which was almost 200 years.
So so Master Carter was gone, Reverend Dawson died, and supposedly 2 other men helped take over that process. But the process continued. That's extraordinary. That it is amazing. It is extraordinary that it was continued in spite of the person that started it, and then at least one person that directly knew the person who started it were gone. But but it was so well written that there was, that the county, or the courts continued the system, and someone was there to make sure the shillings were paid. They still had to pay money every time that this happened. So I think they may have changed from shillings at some point in time, I don't know, but yeah. But that would still have to have been paid. And so, yes. And I think that we're, almost that she has that look.
I don't want to hold up anybody that
Okay.
needs to go, but
Yes, so what time is it?
it's about 8:15.
So we have gone 15 minutes over, and so if you'd like to ask more questions, please fill them.
About this 1854 date, it went on to 1854?
Approximately, I think that was correct.
I'd have to
go back, but it was a long, long, long time. But I mean, really, it was a long stretch out, if you consider the amount of people that you are doing at a time.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
Karen.